So in this video, we're looking at a passage that's in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 8 down to verse 20. Or no, actually we'll finish the chapter off and then go from chapter 6, just the first two verses. But it looks at the vanity of wealth and having money and working for money. But the reason I wanted to make a video just looking at this passage here is because it also condemns the ideology found in socialism and in communism, which is a pretty popular topic today. A lot of people are pushing for that and supporting that and wanting that in the free world. And so I thought, you know what, I'll make a video just reading this passage here in Ecclesiastes that kind of is eye-opening in regards to how God feels about all this stuff dealing with money. And there's a lot of passages that deal with money. It is an important topic covered in the Bible, but this is one of my favorite passages that deal with that. So we'll start in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse number 8. It says, "If thou seest the oppression of the poor and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter." And so we hear that a lot from the left, a lot from Democrats. They say that people are being oppressed and it's an injustice, and the poor are being oppressed and the minorities and all this kind of thing. But it says if you see the oppression of the poor and perverting of judgment, injustices and things like that in a province, the Bible says, marvel not at that. Don't be surprised and taken back and worried about it. Really, it says, for he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. So really what you should do is not look to men to solve the problem. Don't look to community to solve the problem, but look to the one that is higher than they. And of course, I believe that's a reference to God. So trust God to work those things out. The Bible lets us know that vengeance is God's. He makes it his business to get revenge if there's truly an injustice. So you just have to pray and trust God to work those things out rather than making it your business to try and right the wrongs and the injustices that go on. So you're not supposed to rob from somebody that's innocent in order to try and help someone that's been wronged. You're not supposed to rob from people today to pay for slavery in the past. You know, that's a popular topic, and I believe California already pushed that through to tax people and then give reparations to blacks who were never slaves from people who were never slave owners. And what's going on? They see something that they consider an injustice and they are taken aback by it. Now we're going to make it right by doing something else that's wrong. That's not what we're supposed to do. The Bible's clear that if there really is something wrong going on, he that's in the highest station, God, he regards that and he'll take care of it. So we have a society today that does not trust God at all or even consider God, which is probably why we are in so much trouble. We're trying to do God's work and be God ourselves. Verse number 9, it says, "Moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field," right? It's saying that even the king, what's on his table comes from the field. If he's harvesting cattle that eat in the field or vegetables that are grown in a field, even the king is served by the field. And so are the common people and regular citizens, peasants in the old days. Everyone is served by the field. Everyone has needs in this life that they must meet, not just you. So the idea that the poor have all these needs and the rich people don't need or want for anything is false. Everyone has needs that have to be taken care of, and God's creation in the earth is set up to meet those needs and to take care of those human lives. We don't have to rob from people that we think don't have any needs in order to meet our own needs. Then verse number 10, it says, "He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity." So there's a reminder there that money will never satisfy you, no matter how much of it you get. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, okay? Someone else's money won't satisfy you no matter how much of it you get. You can keep raising taxes and coming up with new welfare programs, but no matter how much welfare you receive, if you're a poor person, you'll never be satisfied with it. You'll always want more. So that is not just for rich people. You can read it that way a lot of times on the surface. He that lusteth after silver will not be satisfied with silver. That must be talking about people who are rich. But anyone that's trying to get more money in some way for themselves will never be satisfied with what they get. They'll always want more. And so these welfare programs are not the answer to the problem. They're just feeding that appetite that these people have, and they're going to want more and more and more, and eventually it'll ruin a nation when everyone's just wanting something from the rich and they're never satisfied with what they already have and are receiving. Verse 11, when goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? And so when it says the goods increase, they are increased that eat them, I don't believe it's saying that the rich are increased, because right after it says, what good is there to the owners thereof? And so the rich, they increase their goods, but then there's more people that want to take from them and steal from them. And I have some friends that I would say are rich, and that's certainly true. They say that people, relatives, distant relatives, and people they've never talked to or hardly have talked to, all of a sudden when they are doing well and prospering, they start wanting to come around because they want to take some of their riches and some of their prosperity for themselves. And that's wrong. That's spoken of negatively here. And it says, what good is that to the owners? Saving the beholding of them with their eyes, the people that want to take their stuff and make it theirs. And in Luke 12, that's a cross-reference passage for this verse. In Luke 12, 18 to 20, Jesus is talking. And there he says, Luke 12, 18 to 20, and he said, this will I do, I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods, and I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years, take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. And then here at the end, then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? And so all those things you worked for, all it did was increase the number of people that are going to take it and eat it for themselves. So there's no benefit either way. Verse number 12, it says, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. So the grass is not greener on the other side for the rich. It seems that way because if you have money problems as a poor person, you think if I was rich, I wouldn't have any problems. But one of those individuals, like I mentioned, that I know that's rich, said that your problems are always the same. You're always worried about losing what you have. Whether you have a lot or a little, you're always worried about losing it. There's no peace there, right? Jesus is the Prince of Peace, so you have to know Jesus to have peace. Money won't give it to you, but the error in the communist idea and the error that people in poverty may have is that they think if they get money, all their problems are solved, and that is not true. We see that a laboring man, a common man that is working hard, whether he has a lot or a little, he's going to sleep well. But the rich is not able to sleep because he's worried about all the things that he has. This is a carnal rich man. Then, let's see, verses 13 to 17, it's just kind of a good reminder here. It says, there is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely riches kept for the owners thereof to their hurt. So greedy, stingy people. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand. And that could be poor people too, wanting something for themselves. They get these welfare programs and they want to keep it, so they keep voting in a way that they know is wrong and bad, but that's because they think that voting that way will keep the welfare coming in that they already have. And it could cause a collapse of the system, so then the next generation will have nothing, right? So that can go both ways. Verse 14, but those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand. We just read that. Verse 15, as he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. And what profit hath he that hath labored for the wind? Of course, the answer there is obvious. There's no profit. All his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath with his sickness. Okay, then verse number 18 says, Behold that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it is his portion. Notice it says that it's good for you to enjoy the fruit of your labor. So earlier we read about the man that's stingy and greedy, and he stores it up for himself, and that's an evil thing. But the one that works and gains fruit and then enjoys it and puts it to use, that's a good thing, because when you die, you're not going to have anything anyway. That was spoken about in those verses we just went over and read there, that you came in the world naked and that's how you'll leave. So enjoy the riches, and that is your portion from God. That's a blessing from God to be able to earn those riches and then put them to use and enjoy those riches. I was talking to a Christian man one time, he goes, where does the Bible say anything about enjoying our riches? You know, people have this super spiritual mentality that we just need to suffer and be sad and poor and sad and have a hard time because we're Christians. No, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teaches it's good to enjoy whatever blessings God sends your way. And I want to point out here, it says that he is to enjoy the good of all his labor. Put emphasis on the word all his labor, right? It's not the job of the government to take some of his labor via the IRS here in America. There's no IRS here in this passage. That's not a good thing. What's good in God's design is for a man that labors and works to be able to take all that he gained, all that income, for his own use. And he can give it to others, and there's a blessing in giving and helping others, but his arm should not be forced by the IRS, by the government, something like that. That's contrary to communism to say that the rich should enjoy what they've been blessed with. And he pushes this point again in verse 19. It says, Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof. Okay, so to take that wealth and use it for something, not just store it up because he loves money. And hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion and to rejoice in his labor, right? The work he does that generates this wealth. So you're working for it. You're not just, being handed wealth from the government. You're working for it. This is the gift of God. Wow, that's very specific. It doesn't say this is a gift of God. It says this is the gift of God. So I think that gives it more weight, that it is from God. And God can decide who will be rich and who will be poor, and he will give riches to one and perhaps not another, based on whether or not it's good for them spiritually. It might not be good for you spiritually to have as much money as you want, to have a 7-figure bank account. That may not be what's best for you, and you have to trust God. That was the first thing we talked about in the beginning of this video, where in verse 8 it says that, don't worry about the oppression of the poor and injustices, because God sees all that and he will take care of it. So just trust God to give you what you deserve and enjoy the blessing, whether you're rich or not. But we see here that God gives someone riches, and it's their right, their God-given right, to enjoy those riches. That does not go in line at all with socialist thinking or communist thinking. That idea is that everyone should have an equal distribution of the wealth that's being generated in a society, in a country, in a nation. But that's not what God says. God gives it to the individual, and it's their gift from God to enjoy the riches and the wealth that they've generated from the work that they've done. Verse 20, For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart. That's a good thing. That's a blessing from God that some may have and some may not have. Some may be blessed by God in that they'll have wealth that causes this life not to be as much of a burden. But will that person still honor God, spiritually speaking? If they will, then maybe God has no problem giving that person wealth. But perhaps giving someone else wealth will cause them to fall in love with the things of the world, get comfortable in the world, and not have any drive or motive to do something spiritually speaking. So that's all up to God. And so back to that theme we already talked about of just trusting God to weigh these things out. Who's poor, who's rich, etc. Chapter 6, 1, it says, "There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men." Verse 2, "A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth. Yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it." That sounds like, well, it could be a lot of things, but it could be a communist government, right? He doesn't have the power. He works and produces all this wealth and all these riches, but he doesn't have the power to eat of it. Instead, someone else gets it, right? Someone else takes what he earned and uses it for themselves. That could be through the government. That could be through a greedy employer, right? I'm self-employed, thankfully, but there's people, you work for someone and they're charging $120 an hour for your labor and paying you $15 an hour. So you're generating a lot of riches, and if you were able to get all $120 an hour of that, you wouldn't want for anything. You could meet all your bills. Money would be no issue if you were making $120 an hour. But you're only getting $15 an hour from that, and the employer's getting the other $105. And they tell you, well, we have insurance and we have additional taxes and all, and that's true, but that don't account for $105 an hour. You know what I mean? Or if you're getting $20 an hour and they're getting $100 an hour, those are greedy employers. When I hire people, I don't ever charge $100 more per hour than what I'm paying the individual working for me. It might be $15 or $20 more an hour than what they're getting paid. So I make money as the owner, and that's my right. That's the gift of God to me, to make additional money off someone else's labor working for me, because I took the risk to start the business. And that's a blessing from God that I enjoy. But I don't take the people to the bank and hardly pay them enough to just get by. I think that is wrong. So it talks about here a man that is generating wealth, but he doesn't have the power to eat thereof, and a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. And I think you can see where that is not exclusive to communism, but it is applicable to communism. So that is the passage, mostly Ecclesiastes 5, some of the beginning of chapter 6, that deals with money and how it's a vain thing to pursue, whether you're rich or poor. But mainly, the main thrust I wanted to have with this video is to show from that passage where it is unbiblical to support any type of socialism or communism. It just does not line up with the views God has about money and wealth and riches in the Bible.